Hello and welcome everyone. It's Thursday, it's 5 o'clock, so it's time for Law Firm Marketing Show and Tell. And so far I am joined by Simon, Rich and Cass. Sorry, Cass, I haven't yet added your image into the countdown at the beginning there. That's next on my task. And Charlotte will be joining us shortly. Simon is just reflecting, fabulous light coming through there. It looks absolutely
angelic.
Stunning. And I was going to use the term angelic, and then I realized, well, it's Simon, so I don't know if that would work. So just before we really get going today, let's have a brief round of introductions. Let's start with Rich this time. Hello, Rich, Saxton Digital. You've changed your name.
Yeah, Rich Dibins, Saxton Digital. You know me, I like to change it every week. So my name's Rich Dibins. Basically, I run and operate Saxton Digital as well as working with InfoTrack on our CMS partners. My speciality is working with law firms on their digital marketing, social media, LinkedIn, and helping them to create engaging, eye-catching content and not the boring stuff that we see. But yeah, working with them on their social media and promoting their services.
That sounds great. And next, let's say hello to Cass. Hello, Cass. How are you this week?
I'm very good, thanks. I'm Kat Collier. I head up Flair Insight, and we are a marketing research company focused on law firms. That's it in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. And finally, Simon.
Hello.
Go for it, Simon. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Simon, and I've been having opinions about everything in the legal sector for the last 20 years. I do lots of law firm marketing and lots of digital marketing as well. And yeah, I don't have any hedgehogs in the background. That's what you need to know about me.
No hedgehogs in the background. Who's got
no? Kat Collier has got hedgehogs.
Oh.
we have the same cushions downstairs, actually.
No.
It's because the router is right behind me. I learned from the first time that I was on. So
is it powered by hedgehogs?
It's powered by hedgehogs, yeah.
What a way to go. So Simon, you sorry, I've been joined early on today by a little one.
Is it really?
Popping up there. So Simon, you were mentioning before the show earlier today about something you'd been looking into recently.
Yeah, well, I know that Charlotte was keen to talk about the client-centric side of things, so I think everyone's got an opinion around. All five of us have got stuff that we do in that area, and it'd be good to hear different people's voices. But I've been doing some kind of client research surveys over the last few weeks for different firms, and yeah, I mean, using a relatively standard set of kind of questions as you'd expect to do as well. And it's been really interesting watching firms and chambers go through that kind of process, some of them for the first time as well, and discovering that client-centric isn't just a phrase that you put on your website in your About Us section, but it actually does mean going and asking anonymous questions. And the clients have been really good. They've allowed me to write to every single person that's instructed them, for a whole year. So it's not like some, partial kind of, client thing. They want to take everything in, hoover it all up as well. And the feedback some of them have been getting is absolutely phenomenal. Like really, would fundamentally change the way they present themselves to market. There's, values are coming through, like quality of service and other stuff that's in there that, things that you wouldn't say about yourself, you wouldn't dare say about yourself. Clients that love you are willing to say about you. And I think that it's been really interesting going through that. And for the chambers that I've been working on in particular, there aren't many chambers that would go down that route. So it's really good news that I've got one that is willing to do so. And they have also published their scores, so there are some, I know, I always talk about these kind of proxy scores, for the overarching thing. And there's some really nice scores in there around value for money, recommend to a friend, and communication on fees. And frankly, I think any of us as consultants or people who run our own businesses could run those scores as well, and they would be perfectly valid for us as much as they are any professional services, really. And they are very good barometer scores for lots of other things as well. But yeah, I can drop in the notes later on some of the press releases and things that they've done as a result of it. But it's this idea of of doing it, but being really transparent about it as well. And then doing it holistically. It's not, I mean, Kat and I, when we worked together, some of the programs that were run back then, there's nothing wrong with, I mean, CMS was just, it was in a different time, you know, era. They would selectively choose who they'd go and ask those kind of research things, right? And as Kat was saying last week, that kind of, you know, that kind of determines from the outset to some extent, you know, how the result's going to go. But these really modern legal businesses are willing to, you know, take it on the chin, and the scores they're coming out with are absolutely frightening. Really good, like really good. I mean, people are getting 9+ out of 10 for communication on fees. That's not something I think that you'd associate with the sector traditionally. So yeah,
what's the response rate like on this? So what's the methodology of going out? How's the data being collected? What sort of response rate are you typically finding?
So in terms of methodology, I'll come to that first. So we would declare that we're doing it, and almost declare publicly we're going to do it. And that kind of commits you to a course of action. That means even if it comes back and it's not the results you wanted, you're still going to share the results. All right. So it's really important to tell everyone you're going to do it. And I think internally and externally. And then it's send it to everyone who's had a bill. And anyone who's, well, I mean, happily, anyone who's contacted you for a quote, frankly, as well. So it's everyone, and it is by email. Yeah, we do use a survey function to do it as well. But we ask people, you know, who it is that their primary contact is, you know, what do they, you know, how would they describe them, their adjectives, would they be willing to leave a testimonial? Because some people have got something to say, but they'll still be willing to say something positive down the bottom. And I know Charlotte loves a kind of control question. We ask some of the questions 2 or 3 times in there, because actually the way that someone will answer one question phrased a certain way, you actually get a very different quote a different way as well. And what it elicits is gold dust, really, because immediately in the market you're able to differentiate as well from other firms who just aren't leading with enough of the client voice.
And the response rate coming back, I mean, let's say out of 100 that you send out, because I mean that's always a big concern as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as high as you'd think, or high as you'd hope, rather. I don't know if I've got the rates off the top of my head. I mean, you know, maybe 15 to 20% are coming back. It's not bad, but those are some of the smaller firms. At the larger places, you know, it's not necessarily all of that, but it's certainly indicative. If you think that you can call a general election on the basis of what 2,000 people think, then I think it's okay to say that you'll be able to determine, you know, the level of a law firm service with, you know, a couple of 100 responses to those surveys as well. And those larger firms, I think, have tended, I mean, Kat probably knows more about this than I do, but they have tended to rely on some of those surveys that are run on an industry level, right, and run in very specific ways. There's nothing wrong with a NICE survey, you know, in and of itself, if you're the kind of firm that has a client base that sits in the NICE survey, right? But if you're not, then I think that, you know, yes, we need review solicitors. We need that kind of third-party endorsement, and that's lovely. But it's for the most part, it's pretty positive as well. And actually, some of the nitty-gritty feedback that people have got to say about, you know, some of the things that we've got to do, they're going to do that privately when you've asked them nicely and in a timely fashion, and they want you to succeed because they've already instructed you. So they do come back and say, look, please can you address this issue that we've got as well. Yeah, I think response rates will go up if you do them once, twice, 3 times, and I think you've got to be willing to demonstrate that you're willing to change and transform what you're doing as a business result. So if you can go out and say, look, the feedback was that X wasn't working properly, and this is what we've done about it, then I think that that goes to that client-centric approach that we were talking about today.
Are there certain topics that are coming out? So 2 or 3 years ago, when I last did a big firm survey and analysed it, billing was a huge one, where people would be irate that, you know, they were invoiced 6 months later or too early or whatever. What was the other one? And it would be junior people in the team. So the relationship is with the client partner, but then they introduce other people, or there are other people working on it, and it would be something to do with that rather than the client partner themselves. But those were the big topics that were coming out the last time that I've been looking at it. So I
was going to say, Simon, were there any common themes across all of them in terms of a negative aspect?
I mean, look, I say this as a comms person, but comms is always going to be, part of the answer to that question. I think to Kat's point just now, and to your question as well, that if fees are something that you should be billing in a certain way, then communication on fees is the issue, and being clear with people about you do remember that you chose to be billed this way, and that's why we're billing you that. We're quite happy to bill you every month, but it's litigation, and you've told us you want to be billed after the thing is done. I think it's about there's a lot of it to do with communication. I'd say is the big key, and I think in the era that we've just had, with everyone having gone remote and worked the way we've worked as well, that's been more essential than ever. Now, people weren't actually complaining about that for the most part. I think they thought that was pretty good. There is a bit of a slight weird difference on the feedback that you get, depending on the client base as well for the barristers, because of course they've got Joe Public, and then they've got referring solicitors firms, and there's almost like a disparity between those two kind of work sources. And if you think about it, it's just a level of understanding about who you're instructing and what you're doing in the first place. And I think, frankly, quite how high regard lawyers hold barristers for the most part shows up in the figures as well. So that's kind of interesting. There's definitely other themes there. I don't think anybody was really too forward looking. They weren't worried about, how is it going to be next year? And everyone thinks that it's all about, we've changed the way we work forever and we've done all this and that. I think people are worried about, am I going to get quality service? Are you going to do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it? I don't know, Kat, maybe you see more of this stuff. I think it's an incredibly low bar that you've got to hit in terms of the delivery of this stuff. Even in 2021, it's like, just stay on top of your stuff and do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of law firms are onboarding stuff like new technologies for client innovation, and clients will like it if it reduces fees or it makes their life easier. But what they actually want is a smooth transaction and to know where they are, and that doesn't really change. But I suppose it changes dependent on what the matter is. So if it's a litigation partner, what they really want to have is somebody on the phone immediately when they're going through a crisis. And if it's your standard conveyancing, it's more about, is this really slow process actually moving forward, and can I actually see what's going on? So but it's always having some sort of transparency that's the key thing, I think. So
Rich, was that the only question you were going to ask me another question a minute ago?
No, the only with my role, shall we say, InfoTrack, one of the things that we've always discussed with clients is new technologies to make the experience with clients a lot better. And the majority of the feedback that we had was the majority of their clients want a more modern approach, specifically around conveyancing, to their legal services. So being remote, accessing everything, on these little devil devices. And not having to leave the house. Why have I got to send something in the post? Guess some people have never bought a stamp. Can you believe that? So this kind of feedback that we've received at Info has always been one to drive clients forward with technology, and that's feedback we've always asked. What should we be doing next? How can we help you to help your clients? Technology has always been a big driver in that. But I think majority of people now expect this from law firms as part of, if you're going to give feedback, they'll get a paper form sent out to them feedback. Why can't they do it online, where they can then extract it, use it on the web, use it in their digital, use it in their comms, and so on. So there's this kind of, they might even do review solicitors and all of that aspect, but they're actually traditional law firm and they don't embrace the technology aspect of it. So
I still feel like, one thing that I'm seeing that's not in the survey, but is it the results of the survey? I think there are two that I point out that I want to see more of in the year ahead, and I'd love to celebrate more. One is that firms that are saying these are things that we did as a result of those survey results, really sharing, these are the transitions we made, right? And you might feel like, we feel a bit foolish doing that. We should have done that before, or whatever it might be. But look, people like progress, and that's okay. And then I really do think that on our marketing materials, we just don't have enough client voice as well. People resist it so much. And running that survey, having those quotes come through, telling your story for you, I know that we all believe that they're really important, and what we say about stuff is, going to be listened to like it's gospel. But actually, if someone else has trusted you, paid you money, and you've done a good job for them, and they're willing to say that publicly, use that, because that's what people buy as a proxy for, a kind of trust signal, as it were, especially in the digital era. I think there's more of that I'd like to see in the year ahead. People fronting up communications, like whole brochures just starting with the client quote on the front page and getting rid of all the other faff and the 300-word SEO title that's just instead, if we had and Rich, on the review solicitor side of things, I think it's in there in terms of surfacing it digitally, but they're not always named, those people, are they? They're not always like, details to who it is. And I think, firms, there's some weight that needs to be given. If you're acting for the head of BA on something, right, then get it on your website, get it on the homepage. Say we're trusted by these people.
Brabner's good at that, actually. Sorry, Rich.
Sorry, go Kat.
Brabner's are really good at that. I think they've got Very Group and Peel Ports, who are massive. They're a national law firm, but really Liverpool law firm headquartered. But they're two of the biggest companies there, and they've got them slap bang on their homepage as case studies. So yeah, they're a good one for that.
Yeah, some of the case studies I've seen, like, so Stevenson's do a number of case studies with their PI clients, and they've done interviews with real clients. It's not been, staged actors or anything like that. Now that carries a huge amount of weight to it. So, it goes, I think Novum Law, they're another one. They have personal interviews with all of their clients or their case study clients. And you can tell the actors from the real clients that they've got there. So those carry a huge amount of impact when clients are looking to choose, or instruct somebody.
I mean, I remember working with one law firm doing case studies and all the rest. And thank you. And going through, collecting all the information, coming out with the comments from clients, the case studies of some really impressive work, and then going through and getting it signed off. Some of it was so anonymized that it just made no sense. And that's where it got really ridiculous. But I think the point here is if you do have that head of BA, whoever it is, giving those fabulous quotes, those are like gold for a website. They are such a strong trust signal. It's fabulous.
So when, and I know we talked about it before, and I know we're not really doing it, but in the client-centric, let's think about that for a web page for a minute, right? So I just want to cover this one point. But as you're going down a web page, it gets to a certain point where your intent has changed, and you're thinking, okay, well, conceptually, I understand what it is I need to do. That's awareness done. These guys are, kind of good enough. And then you get into like all the objections, don't you, Rich? You get to start going, well, why should I? Why is it these guys? That is slap bang. If you go and look at a really good B2C website, at that point in time, go and look where their Trustpilot, their, equivalent of review solicitors thing is on the page. That's exactly where you need to put it on your page. And it's not there by accident. They've done it because they know that your mindset has changed, and suddenly there's a part of the logical part of your brain is kicked in to go, no, it can't be this good. We've got to come up with all the reasons why we couldn't possibly, I had to pitch a campaign years ago to law firm partners. It took me 10 minutes to pitch the campaign and 50 minutes to defend the questions as to why we shouldn't do it, right? And then it was very quiet at the end of it because I was ready for every question. But, in the middle of that, you've got to have, right, well, clients tell me, or this is that. And I think that threading a bit of that through, too much saying client-centric, not enough being client-centric. And that looks like going with that voice. Go on, Kat.
I was going to say that something that I picked up on with law firms that aren't UK-based is having a client service charter, so saying exactly what you will expect. Some of the smaller law firms do it. Like there's a firm called My Home Move, and it's an online conveyancing basically, and they say that their lawyers are available 7 days a week. There's always somebody who will pick up the phone. You've got a dedicated conveyancer, 7 or 8 points about what you can expect. I think some of the law firms in Australia do it as a kind of standard, but I haven't seen it for quite a lot of the firms in the UK. But that gives you some credibility about what you're going to get. So
see the US guys that do like the 2-hour response. That's their tagline, and it's like flipping. It's an employment law firm. They will not let you. I think it's 99.98% of calls and emails are responded to within 2 hours of you issuing that thing. I mean, what a phenomenon. I mean,
But
no one.
I've heard of this. When they say respond, it is a response, but it's a generic response. It's thank you for your inquiry, or thank you for emailing Mark. Mark will get back to you within. So yeah, the response is there, but the context within the response. So I have seen this email that, yeah, there's a PI lawyer who will call you back. Doesn't matter when it is, he'll call you back within the hour. And some people have said, yeah, he calls you back, but it's an automated phone system where you click, you qualify your claim, and then Mark will get back to you at your chosen time. So yeah,
I don't disagree with that, but there's such a disparity at the moment between, you know, that kind of idea of that client centricity that we say, okay, it's not great to say 2 hours and then mean you're going to get an automated, you know, response email, as it were. But Phil from Nexel was telling me a few days ago, when they apply their product at a firm level, they basically crawl the Outlook base, and they'll tell you, okay, in relation to, let's take BA and another client like Vodafone, let's say they work for those two, they will tell you the average response time across the whole of your firm, from your lawyers, PAs, everyone, back to each of those clients as well. That's quite frightening, because then he can tell you a point of data that you don't even know yourself. And they'll say to you, and why is it you take longer to respond to Vodafone than you do for BA?
I would love to know if that's also measured, if they look at it against billings at the end of the month. So let's take BA and Vodafone. You know, do they respond to BA quicker because BA bill more? They bill more to BA than Vodafone. I wonder if there's going to be that they're a bigger client, they spend more money with us, we'll react quicker. Do some law firms do that as well? If you don't spend as much with us, we're not as reactive.
And remember, I mean,
phone line and email.
Yeah.
The cat's point, though, I mean, having the charter is the important thing, isn't it? I mean, if you can live that idea of what that service charter would be, not in some theoretical kind of way, but it can live it in a behavioural way, then it would show up as, okay, we're hitting these targets across these things, and actually it doesn't matter if they, if the client is an active client or a target or a lapsed client or whatever, right? Or the other side. You know, I mean, they're all perfectly valid to get responses in a sensible time, even if it's just, you know, we'll get back to you, as it were, but in a manual kind of way. But it's interesting, though, that I don't think the firms necessarily declare it at the moment, and then oftentimes I would suggest don't monitor it as well. On the Kat, have you got anything else for us on the client-centric side of things from a survey perspective? When people are, here's a question: when people are thinking about doing stuff in your world and the research, I mean, clearly they're asking you things about client research, as it were, as well, but did firms ever ask the clients about the stuff that's done in the research side of things? So they ever say, well, we're going to go and do some market research, we're going to go and do this thing over here, do you want to know about it? Do they ever ask them before they do that side of things?
In terms of actual client research on the client, I know that some of law firms take our work to the client and say, this is what we think are your issues, and they talk about it. And that's something that is within the accountancy firm world, that's quite standard to use it as a conversation starter. In terms of marketing and surveys and client feedback surveys, I rarely see a firm who shouts about their client service, how great they are in terms of client service. I think that was something maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I could see lots of firms talked about how client-centric they were, and they seem to have moved on.
Because it's just an assumed thing now because they're not doing it anymore.
Well, it's become huge campaign focus from what I can see. So, you know, your digital, legacy COVID stuff, all that kind of thing. It's more of a campaign-led focus than but you could see it. Everybody kind of moved, as client surveys became a bigger thing, everybody moved into we are client-centric, but there wasn't that. Some firms did evidence it, but some of them just said it and that was it. So, yeah, it's interesting to see. There's almost a return to a few years ago that's needed, but with actual evidence behind it. So
I'm going to have to duck off, guys. Unfortunately, I have a 5:30. So great catching up with you all. And
is it the Rich Social? It's the Rich Weekly Social, is it?
It's not. It's my wife. We have a midwife appointment. So
more
yeah.
important than we do.
Yeah, that is, unfortunately, I need to go check on that. So yeah, lovely seeing you all as always, and I will catch you next time.
Yeah.
Week.
On the David, on the digital side, when you're
Yeah.
doing the kind of UX or the design part of the process, in the discovery phase, that early bit, are people using firms and agencies using clients to come in and kind of inform how digital is structured for them?
Not as much as maybe they should. It's interesting. I think, it's bringing the clients in there or getting just any of that sort of feedback is still quite a scary prospect, especially within professional services. The worry is, oh my God, what hideous things are they going to come back? What horrible things are they going to say about me? But I think I'd like to see more firms consider it.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember. I think when we did the OC1 quite a few years ago now, Bram and I did it. We got in a recruiter, a journalist, a future solicitor, and a couple of others as well. And we just found that, they're not perfect views. It's just a person's view of the thing. But if it was really out of kilter with what we'd done with what they thought was going to be useful as well, then it was just. Yeah, I mean, the things just got binned at that point in time, and I think it saved us a lot of money because we were building
any fresh set of eyes, especially when an organisation can be so controlling from the top down. I mean, I've seen this with some specific firms over the years where the guidance doesn't come from marketing. It's coming from higher up in the business because that's how they want it, not perhaps how the clients would best appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. I think there's a weight that you have to give to certain client voices as well. I mean, there's some clients, pay the bills and pay more of your overall revenues as well, and it's probably worth making sure that you're kind of looking after those guys as it were as well. And I've done some canvassing again at OC and some other places as well, where we'd actually sit down and get all of the materials out and put them on a table and talk to them about the kind of stuff that we sent them, what was useful, what they found that, and just the views that you got from those people were very powerful lawyers, in-house lawyers. I mean, really worked at some household names, and it really informed what we did for the next 2-3 years after that as well, because it's like, look, we've been declared this stuff that's happening is just not that useful to me, or it needs to look like this, or competitors do X and Y and Z, and I want to see more of this. Again, got to be careful not to add too much weight to one or two voices, but it's got to be appropriately balanced if there's people who pay a lot of your bills and stuff as well. Is Charlotte joining us today, or is she not? Is she going to miss out on this client?
She's been
being client centric herself.
She's been very client centric with a client call, and it's just running over because she's being so centric to that client. But continues to hopefully be with us soon. But we're not clients, so hey.
Yeah.
There you go. I wonder though whether we need her voice in there as well, given the nature of what she's been doing, and it was her pet topic as well.
I think it's definitely the sort of thing that needs when an organisation is looking at doing something like this. It's definitely an area that needs some time and thought given to it. I think that's another thing. It's not one of those things to rush out and go, hey, guess what? We've just got SurveyMonkey, or we're running a free trial. Quick, let's ask these 6 questions. Because I think the other side of this is you don't have that many opportunities to take over their time to really get the most out of what it is. So I think it's important that however you're collating this information, you start with some good, thoughtful questions. And as you say, sometimes cross-referencing those, and then also how that information comes back in.
One of the themes that I've been thinking about for a while now, but it's actually been brought forward by the pandemic. I think we really might well see it as a result in late 2021 and then into 2022, is that we're also used to remote working now. And I think we'll probably have many fewer desks and chairs at work in the office than we ever did before, right? And I have a feeling that private practice lawyers will spend a lot more time client side as well. Not, acting in-house, not acting as a secondee, but just going, I'm working from the client for the day instead. Because why not? Why, if you're working on something that's a major piece of litigation and you're doing it every day with that client and you want to be client-centric about it, then all of your systems and your teams, everyone back in. You can, your Citrix back in quite easily to the systems based on the client side. But actually the value of sitting, with that lack of distance between you and the client, and that might well be whatever their local hub is. If they're working from home and you're working from home and you go and meet up with each other, I've got clients that are now meeting up and going doing things like that together. That I thought they're in different parts of the country, and it turns out they're right next to each other, and they go and do stuff together. I think that's got to be part of how we envisage what client-centric looks like in 2020. I mean, if you ask an accountant, if you ask a banker, especially private banker, they would not consider that strange at all. They would be like, well, why wouldn't I be, over where that person is, wherever they want me to be? It could be at a restaurant, on a yacht, or frankly, in their living room if it's the appropriate thing to do. And they don't care. They'll do whatever it takes to get the job done. I think we need to see a bit more of that.
And I think it's important with that there's mechanisms in place to feed back some of that information back into areas such as marketing, making sure that, that information can flow back into the business in a meaningful way. We have Charlotte joining us. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello.
I think that just as leaving, you can't have too much goodness all at once.
Good timing. Rich just, so there was a vacant spot. We got a nice 4 square now.
Well, exactly. You? That's why I'm coming in, just to balance things out. Yeah, but I'm really well, thank you. Apologies for coming in late, and hopefully now I bring my fan crowd, so we get the views back high up.
That's usually how it works. Yeah. So we were just talking about you, actually. I mean, we're talking about the becoming client centric, what it means, how it works. Simon's just been talking about some of the things he's been doing around it as well. So it's interesting. Good timing for you to join, so we can now bombard you with questions on your thoughts from the particular areas that you cover.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the reasons why I was very keen to talk about this topic is I think I've mentioned on these webinars as well previously, but if anyone is connected to me on LinkedIn, they would know that I'm currently working on a piece of research around this and how different companies are approaching the topic. And one of the things that I have found is that we have a fundamental issue, where we seem to have a fundamental issue just asking the questions. And I think obviously that's not the whole secret, but that's definitely where it starts for me. And I just felt a little bit puzzled when I was confronted with the fact that a lot of people just don't talk to their clients. They have never asked, actually, what do you want, or where should we go? And for me, that was a very interesting realization. Now, I do work in the legal technology space as well, so that's sort of a mixed piece of information. It's not necessarily just law firms, but it would be very interesting. I don't know if this is something that has come up in your discussion before I joined, but it would be very interesting to see if you've had similar impressions.
A lot of the surveys that I've helped on have been reviewing a matter rather than what do you want. It's not been product development focused, and you can kind of see that in the ways that law firms market themselves. Yeah, or they'll have a major client and there'll be a certain innovation that they've created with that client that they then try and extend to other clients, but they haven't then gone to those and asked them first. They just put a lot of budget into launching it. But Simon and
it's so true. It's so true. I was sat in a meeting a while ago, and when you're almost like on the you're part of the meeting, but you're almost on the fringe of the meeting, like you're looking in. I joined this thing, and I was so late to the party on whatever they were doing. I don't mean at the meeting. I was there on time, Charlotte. So but actually, they've been going on for this thing for months and months, right? And I joined, and as far as I could work out, it was a glorified Excel document. Right, that's as far as I can work out. They were trying to say it was this huge market innovation, right? And it didn't have the workflow capacities of, frankly, something as massively sophisticated as MailChimp, right? So I had no AI or workflows or anything to it as well. And I just sat there thinking, I don't know how to tell these guys, right, that this is the single biggest harebrained idea I've seen, right? I just don't know what to do about it. It was just like, but if I looked around the room, the hourly rate of the people in the room, if you added it all up, they were sat having a conversation about an Excel spreadsheet, right? It was just, I just thought, what are we doing here? This just can't be right as well. So I think that not having any client input into it at all, to Charlotte's point, is I think it's a bad idea. There's only one company in the world, I think, that regularly gets away with. No, that's not fair. There's only one company in the world that I can think of right now that gets away with regularly not involving any clients whatsoever in its discovery and kind of development process and getting it right on a regular basis. And that's Apple. And that's because they, effectively build products for people like themselves internally and stuff as well. And they feel as though they spend a lot of time knowing the client is aware and second guessing what it is that they would want. And they make the object desirable in what they're doing. I was just thinking fashion is another one in which you wouldn't leak stuff in advance of time, of course, because that would be in the same way that Apple's goods would be detrimental to do so. But for the rest of us, there isn't a lot of excuse not to be involving those voices about where people want to go. One of the clients I work for that's not in the legal sector, one of the few that I do, has a roadmap that they publish on their website. And as a technology company, they tell everyone what they're doing for however long. And then when they beat their deadlines, they're like, right, we've already done this now. Next. And if you're their competitor, you sit and look at their roadmap and think, how on earth do I catch up with that? How on earth do I keep up with that as well? It's amazing. I think that just even that idea of road mapping, Charlotte, could be interesting for lawyers. Why not say, all right, well, RegTech, everyone's talking about it at the moment, right? What is it, right? What is it? What you're going to develop by when? Let's be honest about quite how terrible it is at the moment in terms of the ability to press a button and understand how compliant you are globally on a range of different topics. It's just, let's just be honest about it and then say, what's the roadmap that gets us there as well?
Yeah, and actually you mentioned a word which is very close to my heart, which is transparency. And again, I think I have spoke about this before as well, but the legal sector is very interesting because most people have no bloody clue what's going on. We don't understand what our lawyers do because that's their job. That's why we need a lawyer, because we can't figure it out. And because it's a service, it's not tangible. Oftentimes there is no black and white outcome, if you like, and it's transparency is what gives people that illusion of control. Maybe that's a good way to put it. But I think and again, this is going back to the emotional state that clients are in when they need legal advice. They are in a very vulnerable position, in a heightened emotional state. What are the things that you can do in terms of how you deliver your services and how you connect with your clients that you give them a sense of control? Because I don't know, like for me, that's one of the really interesting things. It's like ultimately people feel out of control, and we dislike that. Who in any life situation likes to feel like there's nothing I can do here?
It's really interesting because that's an area that I work on. I know that we have talked previously about that AIDA model, that awareness, interest, decision, action, and that law firms have across the board, and I review this area of their work regularly, don't do enough on the awareness side of things. They're interested in interest. They want people who already know that they want to instruct a divorce lawyer or whatever it might be. But actually, that earlier phase, to answer Charlotte's point, right? There's a need that's unmet. There's an emotional need on behalf of the client. That can be true of a corporate client, by the way, as much as it is. Just because I'm saying divorce doesn't mean that I don't mean acquisition finance. Right. And the emotional state that goes with that, like the uncertainty around what is this thing, is something that lawyers are very, very, very good at answering. Right. So because to answer Charlotte's, emotional state point, you give people certainty by giving them answers, give them questions and answers very quickly, and inform them around those things. Do it in a way that's, human and normal, and through videos and FAQs and things like that. And people trust you more as a result of it. And I think that part of that client centricity thing is doing exactly what Charlotte said, observing the state that people are in before they buy or before they make their first inquiry about it, and then going to meet them as far as possible with information and giving away as much as you possibly can. People are not going to go and do a lot with that information. They just want to know that you know the information, right? And then you're ready to start working with them after that point in time. And I think that there's a gap at the moment between the emotional state that takes place, the need to buy those legal services or instruct on these things, and what firms are willing to write on their websites, in their materials and those kind of things. They're very good at doing it face-to-face and in person. Very good at it, lawyers. We shouldn't denigrate that at all. The best lawyers are brilliant at making you feel like, oh, it's going to be okay and I can handle this and whatever as well. And they step into that space. But we've got to find more of that in our materials and our digital, that stuff as well.
Kat, earlier I saw that you unmuted yourself. I wasn't sure if you wanted to add anything to it.
I can't remember. I'm really sorry. I'm muting whilst children are in the background, but yeah. I was, and I think Charlotte, you'll be able to input on this. I think we were talking before, and we grazed on the subject around implementing technology and whether that's something that clients actually want, because law firms can shout about how they've got a certain document signature tool, etc., and whether that's the clients that are pushing for that, or whether it's law firms trying to show that they're innovative. So
I think it's a bit of both, but the former is not processed the way we say it. So my view on that and on technology in general is that sometimes we, as marketers and as people in the technology space, look at the transaction differently, whereas what clients want or what clients push for is not having to take a day off only to go into central London to sign a piece of paper.
Yes, I think that's something that we're missing, actually, like Simon was saying, around what's this going to give you that's going to tap into your emotions. So yeah,
exactly. So I think, like going back to communicating it on marketing materials, it's not about, law firms care about risk, law firms care about compliance. Clients, maybe business clients do understand that terminology, but ultimately what they care about is how long is it going to take? How much effort do I have to put into this? Can this come back and bite me?
Is it going to make us more profitable? Is it going to make it more profitable? Is it going to make the boat go faster? That's what clients care about. This is an imbalance between, risk and reward. And at the moment, that conversation, when people talk about commercial awareness, by the way, and I think it's one of the biggest lies in our sector as well. I don't think anybody can actually tell you what it means. But I have a feeling that what it really means is an understanding that clients don't just want to mitigate risk all the time. And what they want to do is take advantage of risk. They want to price risk and mitigate as much of it as possible and then profit from the rest of it. And that's what commercial awareness means. It means leaving something on the table that they can take advantage of, and understanding that conversation with your private practice lawyer working for people who aren't either lawyers or aren't in private practice. It's essential for you to be client-centric, for you to understand that you have different motivations. One of you wants to eradicate any form of risk in that and would happily spend 2, 3, 4 months eradicating that risk. Another one of you says, that's good enough, right? And I'm going to go and flog this thing. I'm going to go and do it, right? Bill Gates issued Excel before it was ready to be issued. Why? Because he wanted everyone to adopt it. He didn't want Lotus 1, 2, 3 to be the product. And then they bug fixed it and they applied patches and then they went through that. Now we're used to that system, but we inherited that system from Microsoft releasing stuff that wasn't ready. But we'd literally caught the bug by then. We wanted to use as Excel and do that. And I think that sometimes clients are just like, look, this is good enough for us to go with. We'll profit from this, and then we can keep amending it as we go. And lawyers need to just realize that we can apply those things afterwards, or tweak them or improve them as well.
Lotus 1, 2, 3. You're showing your age there.
Another really quick example. My father-in-law went to buy a DVD player a while ago, right? And if you're going to recommend anywhere to go to buy a DVD player in the UK, I was thinking, where would you say? Be interesting to hear. Kat?
I don't want to say Amazon, but I will.
Okay, Amazon. Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that. Good. Charlotte?
Curry's PC World.
Oh, good. I like that. Good. And then David?
Oh, I'd probably go for somebody like Seven Oaks Audio.
See, really close. Other side of the street in Bristol, but almost. Richer Sounds, I was what I
Richer
said. Right?
Sounds, yeah.
And the reason being, and I chose it because, one, employee ownership model, 2, cracking organisation, longevity of service is huge, really good people, and 3, he's a really good guy, my father-in-law, but he's an older guy, and they will just look after you. You go in, and they will look after you, look after you. I thought he's got the best chance of walking out there without feeling like he's got to carry it to his own car, which is Argos, or have it delivered on, left in the rain, which is Amazon, or whatever it might be. And I thought he's going to have a really great experience. So he goes in, finds it, brilliant, it's got it all lined up, walks out the shop, drives 3 miles down the road, pays £100 more and buys it somewhere else, right? Buyers are not logical. Like, they're not logical at all, and we treat them as if they always are. We treat ourselves as if we are, right? And so being client-centric looks like asking that buyer, when you've made them the offer, 2 hours later, 12 hours later, what can we do? Like, when do we? And if you go at law firms, quite often, we won't bother them for a week. Sorry, we won't bother them. What are we talking about, right? If you go into MailChimp, it tells you follow up within 24 hours, or you've lost everything. You've lost everything. If you offer a mortgage solution to someone over the law firm, one of the firms I work with does a lot of mortgage work. If you follow up within 15 minutes, the acceptance rates goes through the roof. Like, if you call them within 15 minutes, you will close that deal. If you don't, they've moved on. They've found the next provider. They've done the thing. And I think that firms talk about being client-centric, but have probably going to look at some more of those B2C models. Think about timing. Could Richer Sounds have captured, my father-in-law to make that purchase? Possibly not, right? You're not going to win all of them. But it's interesting, isn't it, that they didn't capture his email and grab him within those 15 minutes before he drove off somewhere else to go and do it as well. And I just think that, if that's in B2C, and that's a really, really, really good client service organisation, probably one of the better ones out there in the UK, and law firms can still, we do really well for clients we already work for, but I think we can do better in relation to those people, trying to win them as well.
So one of the things, and this is why I was late, but one of the things that I have found over the past few months is that we have a real issue categorizing ourselves and our role within a business. And there is this concept of actor-to-actor theory, and excuse me throwing in academic boringness into an exciting conversation, but as soon as people are able to leave their roles behind and what is historically expected of them and become flexible in terms of, and those are the transferable skills, so become flexible in terms of how they look at themselves and their what they are supposed to provide the client, the experience skyrockets. And you know what, maybe it doesn't make a difference, and that's one of the really interesting things. sometimes quality, if you have a 98% satisfaction rate for whatever worldly reason, then people will still go with you even if you are being really rude to them. But being easy to work with is a differentiating factor, and eventually it's going to hit the point where even when it comes to financial differences, people are willing to pay more if they have a good experience working with you. And so when we talk about service delivery, why do we assume that there is a way to deliver services? And this is where technology comes in, for example, and communication is such a huge part of delivering legal services. Why don't we ask our clients of how would you like to be communicated with? Do you prefer me sending you a WhatsApp message, or do you prefer me sending you an email? And there are technologies out there which can accommodate lawyers being able to do either of those from a single system, safely encrypted. There's no risk of data getting out or getting in the wrong hands. There are some really powerful technologies. So this is where tech comes into the whole conversation, that it gives you options in certain cases. And it's
I had an email a while ago, it was a few years ago now, but it said to me, you subscribe to our mail list, we've noticed that, and you've been on here for a few years, but you never ever open our emails, and we're just wondering, do you want to move from the daily one to a monthly one instead? Right? And it's just like, I love that idea of them thinking, okay, well, that's just not working. It wasn't enough for them just to punt it out there and hoping that was going to count on their numbers. They weren't interested in just issuing stuff. They want me to open their emails and then read it. And they're like, should we try a different format? And I just think that's really interesting, is that you're willing to give something like that a try, and then say, well, we'll lose those numbers, gain Sayce back to read something monthly. I still won't read it. And in which case they'll say to me then, do you want to not bother? Do you want to come to our webinar once a year, twice a year? And we'll tell you everything there is to tell you. Because are you a news person, a news analysis person, or are you a features person? That's what they want to know. Which do you want in relation to this topic? And then they find you out. But that I think I'd love to see more of that. What I want to see less of is any chatbot stuff as well. I'm not dead set against chatbots per se. I'm not, right, especially when they're well worked. But I think that I think there's a lot of good stuff. Charlotte and I have talked about this before, that happens in the onboarding process. It's just far too important to be left to a series of kind of answers that don't work that well. And I think that we form relationships with people, and then organizations second behind that, in those early stages. And that client centricity, there was a product that one of the firms I worked at had that basically took the humanity out of the onboarding process entirely, to an extent where but even the advice was going to them in a mechanized way on an area that just shouldn't have been mechanized, or shouldn't have been, they were aiming to turn them into £1 million clients. It was like, this can't be the right thing to do, right? It's not everything needs automating.
I've worked in firms where they've really nailed it in terms of coaching the junior staff as well, so that as they rise up, they know what should be expected of them, and they're quite well handheld as well, so that when they get to that senior associate and partner level, where they're getting much more experience with clients, that they know how to handle them. And I think that's a really big point, that from trainee onwards, that they know what should be expected, and not to kind of overestimate what they're going to do and then not deliver. So.
But I think a part of that, which is a really interesting in the whole law firm culture, and maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's giving even junior lawyers some level of authority to make those decisions. Because the whole, okay, we want to deliver superior client experience, but if superior client experience, that's a subjective term. We might have a very good idea that based on the persona that we are after and our typical client, this is most likely going to work. You know, like we all live in a world filled with human interaction, and I just find it so funny that we step into an office or we sit down and switch on our work Zoom, and we suddenly feel this need to act any differently than we would interact with that person if we were just catching up for coffee down the road on the weekend. We are the exact same people with the exact same differing needs and personalities, and not everyone likes to engage the same way. So yes, okay, processes are great and automation is amazing, but giving people the confidence and the authority to be able to divert from that process is, I think, where the uniqueness comes out, and the real, you know, special client experience. So again, like jumping out completely from the sector, I used to do waitressing 8 years ago, and I got into trouble every single day because I wasn't doing the stuff that, you know, we were supposed to do, and this is not how our service delivery looks like. And I'm like, well, hang on, there are about 20 people working here. Why am I the only person getting tipped? You know, it's like, surely, yeah, like some tables like if you chit chat to them, and others don't. Others just don't want to talk to you. Some people want you to fill up their water, whereas others don't. And you know, like I'm bringing a silly example, but I think it's just
not a silly example at all. That idea of retail customer service and client centricity is, Charlotte, as you know full well, and I worked in retail as well for 7 years before, you know, legal sector and stuff, is the difference between profitability and just a normal cut for a fast food restaurant or for anyone like that. If you give people the service they want, not the service you're willing to deliver, there's a huge difference there as well. And I think you're right. Some people I used to chit chat to when I was a waiter, and others, you know, if you saw a couple come in at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night on a kind of Tuesday evening, you leave them the hell alone. What do they don't want to be talking to their waiter. They've come out for a romantic night out and probably away from their kids, frankly, as well, right? You've got to pick up the signals and know what you're doing with your customers. And then, you know, but even then, you know, you can chit chat to some of them. Who knows, right? I think you're right though. But tips, you see, that's the signal amongst the noise. If tips are right and you're getting tips, then that's when the system needs to listen and go, the system isn't working. If 19 people are getting no tips and one person's getting all the tips and they're breaking the rules are wrong.
And that's, you know, that's something I've seen with the automation process, especially over the last few years as it becomes more prominent with the email marketing, tying it into the CRM system and all the social and all the rest of it. The want to automate everything, and I think chatbots are actually a great example, because they're something that can either work really well or completely destroy a relationship. If within 2 or 3 questions you're just getting silly answers and it says, I'm going to have to go and find a human, and you don't hear anything back for 24 hours, that's no good. But if there's a chatbot that can start the process off or cover some of the simple stuff quickly and efficiently, that's great. But it's about finding that balance.
I think that's right. I've really enjoyed our chat this week. It's been a good one. It's nice to have that client centricity. With hindsight, maybe we should have had some clients on the phone, on the call.
We could always do that another week.
Shall we get some in-house lawyers to come and talk to us?
I think that would be brilliant. Good. I might even turn up on time.
We actually had 5 of them in the first half hour when you weren't here. So.
Oh, really? So you needed 5 people to make up for me?
That's what it takes. Nicely done. David, over to you.
Okay, well, thanks again, everyone. Thanks for Rich for joining us, although he's off dealing with all sorts of planning at the moment. Thank you, Kat. Thank you for Charlotte. Thank you, Simon. And we're going to wrap it up now. So until next week, where we have something, of course, very, very fascinating, very interesting lined up. Who knows? We'll figure that out nearer the time. So yeah, until next Thursday, 5 o'clock. Have a good week. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.
See you. Bye.